Top of the SportsMax Zone for this Friday, a massive story coming out of Pakistan. We start here, the New Zealand Cricket Board citing security concerns as a reason behind pulling out of their limited overs tour of Pakistan earlier on Friday. This decision has left the cricket community in Pakistan unimpressed, and that's putting it mildly, to say the least, I would say. Now, especially PCB chairman Ramiz Raja, who criticised New Zealand's cricket, saying walking out on the tour by taking a unilateral approach on a security threat is very frustrating, especially when it is not shared. Which world is New Zealand living in? New Zealand will hear us at the ICC, end of quote. New Zealand declined to share details of the security threat and said arrangements were being made for the team's departure. Joining us now to discuss this issue, international cricket commentator Fazeer Mohammed, to talk about this abandoned tour and its potential ramifications. Faz, you've been to Pakistan before, so you can identify with the geography that we are talking about. What's your take on these dramatic developments in Pakistan?
Well, I think first and foremost, Lance, from about attitudes towards certain parts and certain countries and certain parts of the world. The fact of the matter is there really can be no compromise when it comes to the issue of security. But I think as you touched on it with that comment via Twitter from Ramiz Raja, and remember, he's only just been installed as the new chairman of the Pakistan Cricket Board, outstanding former opening batsman, someone who's been virtually the face and the voice of Pakistan cricket on cricket commentary for the better part of 2 decades. I think that the real outrage is the manner in which this has been handled by the New Zealand authorities. Whatever the level of credibility from their security personnel and the advisory from the government, the fact that they said nothing to the Pakistan authorities before they departed, the fact that they were at practice yesterday when probably that information would have already been transmitted to their squad in Rawalpindi, I think that is the issue when it comes to the Pakistani authorities, because it sends the message that the New Zealand authorities, for whatever reason, did not trust the Pakistanis enough to pass on that information. And I think that is really where the Pakistanis are completely not just hurt by it, but there's a sense of outrage that all that they would have done in meeting all of the security requirements, gone to greater lengths to ensure that the security level was almost to a presidential level, that to find this out almost by the way, after the decision had already been taken, that really smacks of a lack of trust.
Yeah, and now the England cricketers who are scheduled to be touring there next month are expressing some doubts as to whether they will go. A decision they say will come within the next 24 to 48 hours. But Faz, the Pakistanis waited, I think, just about a decade before they were allowed to host international cricket after the tragedy of 2009. How devastating might this be to their cricket?
I think you'd almost write off that England visit already, and even the one by Australia early next year. And I think based on the schedule, the West Indies is supposed to be in Pakistan. But we'll have to wait and see. But the issue is, and again, I don't want to realize it at all, because New Zealand were in Pakistan when there was a bomb blast outside their hotel. They weren't targeted, but the fact that there was a bomb blast anywhere close to a visiting team would have had them deeply unnerved in 2002. They abandoned that tour. Then, when they were in Sri Lanka, there were a couple of occasions as well in the midst of the strife involving the Tamil Tigers, when there were 2 occasions when the New Zealanders were close enough to feel tremendously unnerved by it. So we're not making light of it, especially what has happened in Afghanistan over the last month with the Taliban taking over once again. In fact, when we were in Pakistan in 1997, myself, Andrew Mason, and Michael Holding, the Taliban had just taken over in Pakistan, and there were significant numbers of Afghan refugees across the border in Peshawar. So you knew that there was a difficult situation developing there. But I think more than anything else, it's that issue of trust. The fact that the Pakistanis were kept completely in the dark until the New Zealanders made up their minds that they were going home. And I think that is what is deeply hurtful for the Pakistanis and could clearly jeopardize them hosting international cricket for something that they were looking forward to for the next few months.
Yeah, Faz, and we hear the PCB chairman, Ramiz Raja, saying New Zealand will hear from them at the ICC. So obviously making a threat. So what can the ICC do in such a situation?
Well, obviously, the ICC would wish that this hadn't happened at all. And we all know that when it comes to the ICC, it's not really a government body. It's a horse trading organization. The Pakistanis are going to say, look, we weren't informed, we weren't told, we weren't even given the opportunity to meet the requirements to respond to what intelligence was. Is it a case that the New Zealanders just didn't trust the Pakistanis to give them that information? Because again, at a broader international level, there's that suspicion that the Pakistanis have a level of sympathy towards the Taliban. They were one of just 3 nations who recognized the Taliban as a legitimate government when they first took over the country in the late 1990s. So there are a lot of things tied in here, Mariah. It's not just a simple matter of cricket. It's not just a simple matter of the ICC. It's about international relations. It's about trust. It's almost as if saying that certain countries of the cricketing world, your New Zealand, your Australia, or your England, they operate at a of comes to dealing with countries from the subcontinent and especially Pakistan.
All right, so we are having some technical difficulties there. We're hoping to reconnect with Fazeer from Trinidad and Tobago. Faz, are you back with us? You seem to be looking stable.
Yes,
no? Yeah. All right, so we lost him again, Lance. And Fazeer Mohammed is somebody we don't want to lose in the middle of a discussion like this, but that's all right. You and I can continue. I was about, though, listening to Faz to jump in with my next question and ask him about the reputation of Pakistan and their cricket moving forward. Because you mentioned to him about England, you know, set to tour Pakistan in a month's time. Of course, if they pull out, and then we think about countries, you know, now refusing to go to Pakistan, how does this help the development of their cricket? I think we have Faz back and maybe he can jump in with the answer. Faz?
Well, I really wish I had an answer for you. And obviously, it is something that is probably going to take Pakistan back to a situation where they have to play all their cricket away from home. The problem is, you've got the Indian Premier League starting in a couple of days' time. So the United Arab Emirates, their home away from home for more than a decade, is out of the question. And I think Pakistan, again, I get the sense, and listening to another former Pakistan player, someone who's also involved in television commentary, Basit Khan, they feel really hurt by the fact that they were not kept in the loop about this situation. And that is really the crux of the matter. It's one thing to talk about a security concern, and no one will want to compromise on that. It's simply keeping everything to yourself, packing up and going home, and essentially leaving the Pakistanis in the lurch. It smacks up a level of disrespect. And the Pakistanis, having endured all that they've had to endure, a situation brought about by their own lax security in 2009 involving the Sri Lankan team, and given all that they've had to do to try to bring cricket back to Pakistan. Remember, the West Indies were there in 2018 for 3 T20s, and the majority of the top players opted out because of their security concerns. So it's a long-running issue. And now to have a situation where they're not even being informed by the visiting team, they see that as a deep insult.
Yeah, and the fact is that the story as we get it, Faz, is saying that the New Zealanders have declined to share the nature of the security threats that propelled them or triggered them into making this decision. I'd be shocked that they would be keeping that completely to themselves and not even at least tell the ICC. Do you suspect that they would have spoken maybe to the ICC even after the fact, having decided to go home, because the ICC are the governing body for cricket? You make a decision like this, it is so far-reaching that you can't be keeping the reasons to yourself, can you?
Well, it comes back to trust. Maybe the New Zealanders feel that before they had their players safely on board and out of Pakistan, they couldn't even tell the ICC, because the ICC, again, they might feel might pass on the information to the PCB, and then the PCB would have tried to intervene at some point. So again, Lance, this is bigger than just the issue of cricket. It takes us to the issue of global politics and whether or not Western nations basically come together and trust only each other when it comes to their security teams, whether it comes to those who are visiting subcontinental nations or nations in Africa, and whether or not they are satisfied with the information that is provided. Basically, in declining to provide that information, of course, they'll never admit it, but in declining to provide that information, they are telling the Pakistani authorities, they are telling Ramiz Raja, they are telling Imran Khan, the Prime Minister of Pakistan, we don't trust you.
Yeah, well, Faz, we'll be keeping our eyes on this story because as it has become very clear now, Pakistan's ability to stage international cricket is now in jeopardy. And as I said, they'll spend pretty much the better part of an entire decade being unable to host international cricket. And the worst thing for Pakistan now is to look ahead to the future and not see themselves being able to host. But I guess early in the week, in the new week, Faz, we'll be keeping our eyes on this story and we'll be checking back with you on it.
Indeed, and I suppose we'll have to find out what is CWI's position on this.
Yes.
At some point, they're going to be invited to tour Pakistan, whether in a few weeks, months, or a year. What's their position, given these latest developments?
Yeah. Okay, Faz, we'll talk.
Take care.
Yeah, so, Maria, this is a huge story because we remember the tragedy of 2009 where, gunmen shot up the Sri Lankan bus.
And they were in the hotel.
Yeah, and players were actually injured in the attack. So no one wants to play around with their lives in that way. But as Faz is mentioning here, and I agree with him, the main issue for the Pakistan Cricket Board is that the New Zealanders said nothing to them. So we understand the New Zealanders' concern if they feel unsafe in Pakistan, but to be hosting an international team and then having them just go off and saying that they have been given some security alerts and have decided to go without saying anything to you minutes before the start of a one-day international, it's a little bit tough for the Pakistanis to take.
Definitely, and for the cricket-loving public and for the fans, and I think really and truly, Lance, I would love to hear from New Zealand. I'm pretty sure there's much more to the story, and as you rightfully say, you can't just say you're leaving without... You're basically saying, yeah, security threat, but that can be anything. You need to give us a bit more explanation.
Yeah, so as I said, I do expect that we'll hear a lot more on this story over the weekend and the coming days. So when the SportsMax Zone starts its new week on Monday, we hope to have an update on this pretty fluid story. There's going to be cricket on the channel, SportsMax and SportsMax 2 over the weekend, European League cricket. And you've been seeing some of that over the past few days on the Home of Champions. And it will continue this weekend. Back with more on the SportsMax Zone after this.